Good evening and welcome to the 2022 Minnesota House District 54A Candidates Forum, sponsored by the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau. Tonight we are gathered at River Valley Church. My name is Michael Clem. I'm an attorney at the Helmuth & Johnson Law Firm and a member of the Chamber. I will serve as moderator this evening. All candidates for Minnesota House District 54A were invited to attend tonight. With us this evening are Representative Erik Mortensen and Brad Tabke. The candidates are arranged in alphabetical order. The candidates have already recorded video interviews to introduce themselves to the community, and you can see those online, so the candidates will not make opening statements this evening. I encourage you to watch their videos on the Shakopee Chamber of Commerce website. Tonight, candidates will be asked a series of questions. They will have 60 seconds to respond to each question. They will have 4 opportunities to make rebuttal comments for 30 seconds using their rebuttal cards. And after that, they can also respond at the beginning of the answer to the next question. The first question tonight will go to Representative Mortensen. What is the role of state government?
Well, that's a broad question. Well, I'm kind of a fundamentalist. I believe that the role of government, as founded here in America, is to protect our individual liberties and to protect us from undue threats. Right? So make sure nobody steals your stuff, nobody hurts you. I mean, that is the basic fundamental role of government. Unfortunately, over the last 200 and some odd years, the role of government has expanded dramatically as many people tend to look to government as to be the first institution to fix every single problem out there. And unfortunately, the politicians are all too eager to try to be their savior in exchange for a vote.
Mr. Tabke, what is the role of state government?
Thank you very much, Mr. Clem. Thank you very much, first to the Chamber. Thanks for having us here tonight, and to River Valley Church. It is great to be back doing these with people around. It's a wonderful thing to be back together again and able to talk about these things and have public discourse about policy and where the state is going and where our community is going. And so I believe that the role of government, and I believe that what we do together is what's important. So if people cannot do the work by themselves, they can't accomplish things by themselves, that's where the role of government comes in. I believe that we must work together for strong schools, that we must work together for strong communities and for infrastructure and things that people cannot do by themselves. And so that's, as a mayor and as a legislator, those are things that I work on, is making sure that we are working together to get things done for our communities. So thank you.
Mr. Tabke, what makes an effective legislator?
What makes an effective legislator in Minnesota is working together. You need to develop relationships. You need to work together to get things done. There's different branches of government. There's the legislative branch, there's the executive branch, and the executive branch is people working by themselves, making decisions by themselves, and that's where our current representative, Mr. Mortensen, should be. He believes that doing things by yourself is the only way to get anything done in the legislature. It just doesn't work that way. You have to have relationships, and you have to build constituencies, and you have to work together with folks in order to get anything done. I'm honored that during my time in the legislature, I passed 13 bills. Nearly all of them were for Shakopee. All of them were bipartisan bills of people working together to get things done, and that's how I get things done in the legislature.
Representative Mortensen, what makes an effective legislator?
Yeah, I think, first of all, you got to be a leader. I think, second of all, my focus has certainly been empowering the people across the state, the people in our district, not helping politicians hide. I think you need to be an independent voice in doing so, and I've certainly been an independent voice in the Capitol, even going so far as to call out people in my own party when they've betrayed their voters. So I have a proven track record of doing exactly what I told people I would do 2 years ago, of pulling back the curtain, exposing the corruption in St. Paul, and really empowering the people across the state, because it is the people who hold the political power. In fact, I would say having relationships at the Capitol neuters legislators, because instantly it becomes more about their friends and not rocking the boat in the Capitol, and then all of a sudden you're working for party bosses and they're not working for you anymore.
Mr. Tabke, I see you'd like to make a rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Clem. This is a very good categorization of encompassing our differences as legislators and as leaders for our communities. Representative Mortensen is an obstructionist. He throws bombs. He talks negatively about people. He all the time is personally attacking people, not only of the other party, but also of his party and his folks that he should be working with, and calling constituents names. And that's not how we lead in Minnesota. That's not how we get things done, and that's not who we are as a community and what we should be accomplishing.
I'll use a rebuttal here too. So, what I've learned at the Capitol, and this is a very popular thing for people in the Capitol to say, it makes the politicians in St. Paul hate me, and that's fine. But what people need to know, if you're going to consume your political power and demand results from your legislators, people have to be engaged, and you have to know what's going on inside the Capitol. If you don't know what's going on inside the Capitol, you can't hold them accountable. And believe me, the politicians want you in the dark. It's like when Brad Tabke lied and voted against equal shared parenting. When he told the group he would support it, his excuse was, well, party bosses said I shouldn't vote for it.
Representative Mortensen, what were your greatest accomplishments during your past service in the Minnesota House?
Sure. So I passed as many, if not more, bills than 90% of the Republicans in the House, even though it's Democrat controlled. So I'm very proud of that. And I think larger than that, as my effort has been trying to empower the people, engage them, inform people what's going on, and coach them along on how they can take back their government. We're supposed to be a government of, by, and for the people. What I'm extremely proud of is over the last 2 years, dozens, quite literally dozens of people all across the state have reached out to me and said, you've inspired me to run for office. I want to do what you're doing. And as a result, we have about a half a dozen people this year in the House and in the Senate that are likely to get elected and take a similar approach that I've been taking of fighting for the people, not the politicians like Brad Tabke here.
Mr. Tabke, what were your greatest accomplishments during your time in the Minnesota House?
During my time in the Minnesota House, as I said earlier, we passed a significant number of bills, things that had been sitting on the sidelines for over a decade trying to get done. It's work for our community. I'm not going around the state trying to recruit people to be my friends. I'm not running across the state trying to find
the politicians
other
as your friends.
to work with. I work with the people of Shakopee. And so I'm really proud of the work that we did. We passed bills for Canterbury Park, for Valley Fair, for downtown Shakopee, for bringing small businesses into town, for working together, and bringing millions of dollars for infrastructure to our community. And so it's really important that we recognize what a legislator is supposed to be doing for our community in St. Paul. A legislator is supposed to be working for our residents. We have serious issues in Minnesota. We have serious issues in Shakopee, and serious issues require serious people to get them done.
Mr. Tabke, what is your strategy to engage with constituents on a regular basis?
To engage with constituents, we have a very strong, proven record of engaging with Shakopee residents. We had, during my 2 years in the legislature, we had a significant number of town halls. We had over 24 town halls, both online and both in person in our community, to talk to people, to hear their issues, to hear their problems, and to hear what they want government to get done and what they want government to be accomplishing. And along with that as well, it is really important that you have different ways of people to get in touch with you. And so we have a significant amount of social media presence and working hard for people to connect that way with Shakopee residents. And then lastly as well, I have knocked over 5,000 doors in Shakopee so far this year. It is getting out and talking to people, so you're not just hearing a perspective from the far right or the far left. It's talking to everybody in between who just wants the world to be a better place for their kids.
Representative Mortensen, what is your strategy to engage with constituents regularly?
Thank you. 5,000, that's a pretty good start. That's not bad. So what I do is doing town halls, both online and in person. It seems like there's way more engagement online. So I tend to do online town halls. Always inviting people down to the Capitol. I think once the Capitol building is allowed to actually be open, and we're not locked down like the 10 times Tabke voted for keeping us locked down and our masks on our faces. So hopefully we'll be able to open the building. We can get people down there and get engaged. And then I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten back to people on email, on phone call, and they tell me you're the only one that's ever gotten back to me, including Brad Tabke's time in the State House.
Representative Mortensen, what are the most important issues that you would like to tackle this next session?
Yeah, I think the most important issue as we reflect on the last 2.5 years is the liberties that we've lost as a result of COVID and Governor Walz's and Brad Tabke's complete overreaction to COVID by locking people in their houses, canceling Thanksgiving in 2020, for those who don't know. It was a $1,000 fine if you left your house for Thanksgiving or had anybody over, or 90 days in jail, take your pick. Mask mandates, school closures. Walz and his administration threw a woman in jail for keeping her restaurant open. So the most important thing that I see in the future here is preventing that stuff from ever happening again. And so passing my Never Again bill that takes away the governor's ability to unilaterally declare an emergency and anoint himself or herself the king or queen of the state has to change.
Mr. Tabke, what are the most important issues that you would like to address in this next session?
The most important issues that I want to address in the next session are things I hear about from people every single day as I'm knocking on doors. The number one thing that people ask me about is supporting reproductive rights in Minnesota. We must continue to maintain reproductive rights, and Representative Mortensen has declared that without any exceptions, he will oppose any abortion, and it's just not the way that we should be doing things in Minnesota. The next thing is fully funding education. We worked really hard during my time in the legislature to add more funding to our Shakopee school districts. We would have added millions of dollars into our districts if that had moved forward, but as well, with that, our opponent worked against the referendums in Shakopee, and we passed the last one by 80% because people saw what happens when his type of leadership wins. When his type of leadership wins, you are significantly raising class sizes in Shakopee. You are reducing the services that are happening in our school district, and that's what he wants to have happen in our schools, and that's what had happened for the last 2 years, for the last year, and then Shakopee stood up and said, "This is not good."
I'll rebut that, because that's utter nonsense to say that I want kids to have a bad education, large class sizes. These are just political talking points. I want every kid to have the best education out there. The problem is government schools have failed us. And you can look at the numbers. Like, they just came out a couple weeks ago. Shakopee students, 61% of them are failing to meet science standards. I think it's like 52% of them are failing to meet math standards. So how long we're going to continue to throw money at this problem instead of just recognize the root of it is government-ran schools. So we need school choice in Minnesota so parents are empowered and kids get that great education.
Mr. Tabke, when considering an important issue, how would you resolve any differences among your personal views and the opinion of a majority of your constituents or the position of your party?
Thank you. So the way I work on issues, especially big divisive issues that come about, is I work together and we talk to lots and lots of Shakopee residents. As we talked about already, I have a very clear direction from Republicans and Democrats as to where we want our community to go. And so I reflect on those stories that you hear from people every day as we decide where to go on those issues. But the vast majority of things that happen in the legislature are things that are issues that I believe in are things that need to be done for our community. And so we've got Representative Albright and Senator Pratt sitting back here. I worked with those two guys all the time. They're on the other side of the aisle from me, and we worked together on getting things done because it takes a group in order to get things done for our communities. Our opponent didn't pass a single bill. Don't listen to him say Senator Pratt passed the bill for him. And it's a really important distinction between the two of us, is that you need to make sure that you're working together to get things done. And that's what I have a track record of doing as mayor and as state representative.
Representative Mortensen, when considering an important issue, how would you resolve any differences among your personal views and the opinion of a majority of your constituents or the position of your party?
Sure. So unlike Brad, I actually do what I say I'm going to do. And he just lied there saying I never passed any bills. In fact, the very first bill that got signed into law in 2021 was a bill that I co-authored. So it's just not true. I'd appreciate a little honesty here. And on top of that, Brad claimed he wouldn't vote for omnibus bills 2 years ago. He did it. He said he supported equal shared parenting. He did not. The guy's just incapable of telling the truth. So when I say this, then you know you can believe it. I always put liberty above all else. So I look at every bill to go, does this empower the state further, or does this empower the people of Minnesota further? And that is where I will always fall. That's where I've always fallen. It's why I have the most constitutional voting record in the entire state legislature.
Mr. Tabke, I see you'd like to make a rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Clem. I hate having going back and forth on these things because it is just really important that we talk about policies and we talk about issues and things that are going on. But Representative Mortensen talks about co-authoring bills and claiming those as bills that he has passed. And all co-authoring a bill is sending an email. It's not doing any work. It's not developing any relationships. It's not getting anything done. It's simply sending an email, and he claims work accomplished that other legislators got done for him, and that's dishonest.
Well, thank you for acknowledging I passed a bill. Actually, 3 of them. It's true. In a DFL controlled house.
Representative Mortensen, how should the legislature respond to the state budget surplus next year?
Well, I've been a leader on this issue for sure, and there's no disputing this. I've been the only state legislator in the entire state, House and Senate, to have always voted to protect your surplus. When you include the rainy day fund, we're looking at like $14 billion. It's growing roughly $300 million a week, or that was the pace at one point. So you've been overtaxed. We already passed the biggest budget in the history of the state in June of 2021. We should be returning that surplus money to the taxpayers who paid it, and we should be slashing taxes to make sure it doesn't happen again, and cutting spending in a corresponding fashion.
Mr. Tabke, how should the legislature respond to the state budget surplus next year?
The legislature had a great framework in place in the 2022 legislative session that would have helped millions and millions of Minnesotans. There was the basic framework was save a third so that you have money in the future for a rainy day fund. Make the biggest tax cut in the history of the state of Minnesota, which would have eliminated Social Security taxes. It would have had significant tax reductions for everyone across the spectrum. And the last third was investing in things that we need to have done in the state of Minnesota. So investing in education, investing in infrastructure, investing in transportation, and the things that have to get done across the state. We all know that Minnesotans are suffering right now. We know that there is a significant amount of overwhelm out there right now. And there are things that the state can do, and that takes compromise, and that takes finding places where we can work together to get them done. And so it's finding ways to do those things together, and that's what I will be doing as a state legislator. Representative Mortensen's plan is a giveaway of money back to large corporations and the wealthy in Minnesota, and that's not what we need for our future.
I'll
Representative
rebut that.
Mortensen.
Thank you. That's not my plan, but it's a nice talking point. Like I said, the people who paid in to that surplus is who should get that money back. That includes many, many individuals, because a lot of that comes from the individual income tax. Second of all, let's see, what were you hitting there? Oh shoot, I can't remember what you were saying. Do you want to remind
I
me?
was saying, yeah.
Oh yeah, I know what it was. It was
Save a
hilarious.
third.
He was talking about
invest a
tax
third,
cuts.
tax
This
cuts a
man will
third.
never use that phrase ever again in his life. He's voted for every single tax increase that ever comes in front of him. So do not believe him for a second that he would support any tax cuts. That's hilarious.
Mr. Tabke, what is your view of Minnesota's economy and business competitiveness?
Thank you. As mayor, we worked really closely with businesses across the state and across the world to get them to locate here in Shakopee and to work together on finding ways to make sense. And we grew thousands of jobs in our community, thousands of high-wage jobs. And the state of Minnesota's economy today is people are, in general, doing well, but it is everyone suffering from higher gas prices and suffering from higher prices of food and different things with inflation that are going along that we're all dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And with that, there is a significant amount of corporate greed that is happening in our day-to-day lives. And so there are oil companies that are making record profits. There are food processing companies that are making record profits. And that's all money that should be in our pockets to make sure that we are living better day to day.
Representative Mortensen, what is your view of Minnesota's economy and our business competitiveness?
I think our economic future looks pretty dire right now. When you look at what's going on in the marketplace, when we've got someone like Joe Biden at the helm, and Brad Tabke here supports Joe Biden fully, and with all this government spending, this influx into the economy, this massive government growth is just driving up the prices of everything as we pump money into the economy. So I believe we should be pulling back spending, dropping taxes so you keep more money in your pockets instead of running it through the state. And I find it hilarious that you brought up high gas prices because Tabke wants to increase your gas taxes by 70%. He authored the bill, co-authored the bill to jack up your gas taxes by 70%. So apparently $4 gasoline is not good enough, $5 diesel is not good enough. Is it $6? Is it $8? Is it 10? I don't know. You tell us how high gas it should be.
Representative Mortensen, Minnesota's corporate income tax rate is the third highest in the country, and Minnesota's top individual income tax rate is the sixth highest in the nation. Would you support lowering Minnesota's corporate and/or individual income taxes?
Yeah, I support abolishing both of them, as a matter of fact, because that's how we attract businesses and labor to come back to Minnesota and make this place a destination. We don't have the weather going for us, so we should have a tax climate that draws people here. So I completely support, in fact, I've authored a bill to abolish the income tax here in Minnesota.
Mr. Tabke, Minnesota's corporate income tax rate is the third highest in the nation, and Minnesota's top individual income tax rate is the sixth highest in the nation. Would you support lowering Minnesota's corporate and/or individual income tax rates?
Thank you for the question. So with that in the most recent tax cut, the third that we talked about, would absolutely have reduced the individual income taxes for nearly all Minnesotans. I do not believe that we should be lowering income tax for corporations. And this is just another thing that Representative Mortensen hasn't thought through the entire process of how this all works. By abolishing income taxes, what happens is you lose all of your funding for schools. You lose all your funding for roads. You lose all of your funding for filling potholes in Minnesota. And you are losing all of that ability to get work done for Minnesotans. And so it is it's unconscionable to me that someone would come through with absolutely no plan, absolutely no way to get things done, and just toss something out there. We need to abolish the income tax. And that's just another way that his leadership is not effective for our state.
Rebuttal. Last I looked, because I do a bunch of traveling, we go on long road trips. South Dakota has no income tax. They have schools. I don't know if you know this. You've been to South Dakota. They have schools. They have roads. Texas, I've been to Texas. Boy, Texas is booming right now. They have schools. They have roads. So this myth that if we don't have an income tax and we don't punish your hard work, that suddenly civilization collapses is utter BS.
Mr. Tabke, for the last several years, there have been proposals at the Minnesota legislature to mandate paid leave and other workplace benefits. Do you believe that the state should determine private sector workplace benefits, and why or why not?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the end of that question again?
Yes. Do you believe that the state should determine private sector workplace benefits? Why or why not?
I think that paid family leave is something that we must have in the state of Minnesota. We are today experiencing major issues along the fact of with workforce. So we have the lowest unemployment rate in the nation. So Minnesota has the lowest unemployment rate, and we are doing well growing jobs. We can't find enough people to fill those jobs. And so with that, we need to make sure that we're expanding the workforce. And we do that by making sure that people are able to fill their needs and their lives that they've got. So if you have a sick, aging parent, if you have a child, you should be able to do that without not being able to pay your mortgage, with making sure that you are able to still continue your life and have that go forward. And that would bring more people into the workforce, that would support small businesses in the state of Minnesota, and it would do a lot of really great work. And so I very much support supporting workers and making sure that we're doing the right things for Minnesotans.
Representative Mortensen, for the last several years, there have been proposals at the Minnesota legislature to mandate paid leave and other workplace benefits. Do you believe that the state should determine private sector workplace benefits, and why or why not?
Well, I think the answer to this is pretty obvious to me. No, I don't think it's the state's business to get into what the policies of a private employer should have with their employees. Look, businesses have a built-in incentive to attract and retain talent. I'm a business person. And this is ultimately just create another tax, another burden on small businesses, and we would lose businesses, quite honestly. And like Brad said, we can't find people to fill these jobs because, I would say it's because of our tax climate. You know, we are punished for working hard in Minnesota. I'd also say it's because of Tabke's and Governor Walz's overreaction to COVID when they locked us down, mask mandates, vaccine mandates. People are fleeing states like ours, and they're going to freer states with lower taxes.
Representative Mortensen, what are the top issues regarding policing and public safety, and what reforms do you support?
Well, I think one of the biggest issues, quite honestly, is I spoke to our police chief about this about a year ago, and he had a great point. He said, look, every day across this country, there are literally millions of interactions with police officers that end very cordially, very well. That doesn't end up with a bad incident happening. But the news never talks about that. Instead, they talk about, when things don't go well. I certainly don't think we should call Minnesota police officers murderers the way Brad Tabke has done. I think that is extremely divisive rhetoric, and that doesn't help heal this divide within our police community. I certainly think we need to fund the police, unlike Brad and Ilhan Omar's plan to just defund it. But if you noticed, over the last couple of weeks, Ilhan Omar, Angie Craig, all these Democrats, and Tabke included, that are pushing for defunding the police and calling them murderers, now that an election's coming up, they're all saying, no, never mind, never mind. But you better believe after the election, they'll go right back to it.
Mr. Tabke, what are the top issues regarding policing and public safety, and what reforms would you support?
Thank you. So I am extremely proud of my record supporting Shakopee Police Department and policing and public safety across the state of Minnesota. While I was mayor, we increased the number of police officers that we had in our community. We dramatically increased the funding for public safety that we have in the city of Shakopee. And so those are all things that I have done. I led on those things. I worked to get them done. As a legislator, I passed a bill to support soft body armor for police officers. This is all funding that goes to local police departments. And I wish that every single community across the state of Minnesota could have a police department like the city of Shakopee has. We have an extraordinary police department that I cannot thank enough. Chief Tate and all of our officers do an incredibly, incredibly great job for our communities. That being said, we have massive problems in policing, especially in Minneapolis, that need to be fixed. There need to be adult answers to these things other than just crazy memes pasted on social media that are things that just aren't real. You need to make sure that we are actually tackling problems and doing the work.
Mr. Tabke, should the laws regarding the purchase of firearms be changed? And if so, what changes are needed?
Yes, I have voted multiple times for increasing gun safety in the state of Minnesota. So we must, there are two major things that there seem to have been compromise on during the session that I was in the legislature, during the term that I was in the legislature. The first one of those was expanding background checks to make sure that folks that are victims of domestic violence are protected and making sure that they are less likely to be hurt by gun violence in the state of Minnesota. So that's number one. Number two is red flag laws. And so we lose 22 veterans a day to suicide by gun. And by having red flag laws, it is a really important and critical way for our law enforcement and for our justice system to be saving lives by reducing suicide by gun, as well as by reducing domestic violence by gun as well. So there's a lot that we can be doing and should be doing for the state of Minnesota.
Representative Mortensen, do you think that the laws regarding the purchase of firearms should be changed? And if so, in what way?
Sure. Well, this just goes to show this is a great example of someone here and myself that has really honored his constitutional oath and has the most constitutional voting record in the entire state. Where Brad has one of the lowest constitutional scores because he promotes things like red flag laws that strip away your constitutional rights and take away your due process. So do I believe we should change gun laws? Heck yeah, we should. We should pass stand your ground, we should pass constitutional carry, and we should pass my SAPA bill that blocks Joe Biden's unconstitutional gun control that he's trying to push to the federal level.
Representative Mortensen, should laws...
Mr. Clem.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Tabke, please.
Thank you. This is yet another example of Representative Mortensen's extreme positions on the issues. He has an extreme position that everybody should be carrying a gun everywhere, out in the open, all over our community. That's what stand your ground, and that's what those things want to do. I don't think that's where average Shakopee residents are and what they want to see for gun laws. I don't think that average Shakopee residents and folks that I talk to on a day-to-day basis want to see abortion completely outlawed in the state of Minnesota, and in cases of rape and incest, and making sure that people don't have choice on their reproductive freedoms.
Representative Mortensen, what is your position regarding abortion, and in what circumstances should abortion be allowed or prohibited in Minnesota?
Sure, what a perfect lead-in, thank you. So I authored a life of conception bill. I believe that life starts at conception. With the one exception I have is for the safety of the mother. But otherwise, I don't think it's a good practice to be killing babies. The very fundamental role of government is to protect life. So I think we should be protecting life. All life is precious. Brad wants to be able to abort a baby up to the moment of birth. In California earlier this year, They went so far as introduced a bill, the Democrats, of course, introduced a bill to allow abortions up to 2 months after the birth of the child. That is disgusting.
Mr. Tabke, what is your position regarding abortion, and in what circumstances should abortion be allowed or prohibited in Minnesota?
This is, as I've said multiple times tonight, the number one issue that people talk to me about at the doors. And I believe firmly that abortion discussions and reproductive rights belong between a woman and their doctor. That doesn't need to have any government involvement. It doesn't need to have Representative Mortensen or me telling women what they should be doing with their bodies. I firmly believe that is where we need to go. And the extreme position of saying 2 months after the birth, that doesn't, it just doesn't make any.
Look it up. California.
The way this works is that we should be allowing people to make their own choices and their own decisions, and it should just absolutely happen that way. And there are cases upon cases all across the United States right now where women are not able to access health care because a side effect of a drug could be termination of pregnancy. And these are people who are 60 years old, who are never going to get pregnant, that can't have medications because of laws like Representative Mortensen wants to put into place. And that's just unnecessary for Shakopee,
I think the
Minnesota.
extreme position is aborting a baby
Let's
9
hold
months
on.
into a pregnancy.
You can address it in the response to the next question.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thanks. Mr. Tabke, what is the best way to make healthcare affordable and available to more Minnesotans?
Healthcare is, reproductive rights are healthcare as well. So this all fits together really well. But the state of Minnesota, we have people who are going bankrupt because of healthcare bills. We have, and that's just not right. And people who aren't able to access healthcare because they can't afford healthcare. And so healthcare is a right that everyone should have. And so there are many different ways to get at healthcare, and those could be single-payer healthcare, there could be expanding Medicare, Medicaid. There are a lot of different ways. And I just want to work with other people to find a way where we can fully cover everybody for healthcare in the state of Minnesota. That involves working with Republicans. That involves working with other people who want to get things done in the state of Minnesota. And it requires collaboration and compromise, something our opponent is incapable of doing. And so we need to make sure that healthcare is something that's a right for everyone in the state of Minnesota so that they are covered throughout their entire life.
Representative Mortensen, what is the best way to make healthcare affordable and available to more Minnesotans?
Sure. Well, I will go back because I think the extreme position on this issue of life isn't protecting life. The extreme position is saying we should be able to abort a baby up to the moment of birth. I mean, if you don't think life begins at conception, I'm curious, when does life begin then? When it comes to the answer of this healthcare question, look, something like 70% of all the healthcare costs across the entire country are paid for by some form of government, state or federal. I mean, you notice everything that the government gets its hands into, whether it's housing, education, healthcare, the costs explode. And so I think the answer here is to take essentially the mandates out of that we have for healthcare coverage in Minnesota, kill the Obamacare mandates. When you mandate coverages have to be used in a policy you buy, you're going to drive up the cost. You know, we should have healthcare commercials on TV just like we have auto insurance commercials where they say only pay for what you need. And we should be hearing save 15% in 15 minutes or less on your health care, but because we don't have competition in the healthcare marketplace and we have government mandates, it drives up the cost for everybody.
Representative Mortensen, do you believe that state government should address climate change? And if so, what type of measures would you support?
If we want to go down the path of California and start mandating you all drive electric vehicles and then send out a memo a couple minutes later saying, by the way, you can't charge that electric vehicle and you can't have your air conditioning on in the evenings and you have to turn your appliance off at night. I don't think that's the place that people across Shakopee really want to go to. And on top of that, I can't help but find it interesting that people like Barack Obama, who pushes this climate change agenda, they've got mansions on Martha's Vineyard. Well, if we were really at risk of the seas washing us away in 8 years, according to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, why would somebody make that investment? It makes absolutely no sense. So, no, I don't see any climate change action being necessary here in Minnesota.
Mr. Tabke, do you believe that the state should address climate change? And if so, what measures would you support?
Thank you. Absolutely. The state of Minnesota must be addressing climate change. We absolutely have to. You look what's happening in Florida today. That is a result of climate change. There are businesses that are completely and totally underwater in the state of Florida today as you look at the just terrible, terrible pictures that you see from there. And this is something that is a really good example of how Representative Mortensen is constantly trying to change the subject and not address an issue. He tries to talk about other people who are not in Shakopee, not affecting our community, not anything. We've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, we've got Biden, we've got Obama, we've got California, all these different things that come from other places. And we need to focus on our residents, and we need to focus on what people in Shakopee care about. And we need to do that every single day. And we need to not focus on trying to get other people to join our tribe and trying to get other people to join our little clique. We need to focus on what needs to get done for our community.
Mr. Tabke, what changes are needed in state support for post-secondary education?
For post-secondary education, there are a lot of things that have to happen that as we can invest in state schools. The University of Minnesota, the state doesn't have a ton of things that we can actually do to affect change at the University of Minnesota. It's kind of a system on its own beyond funding and those types of things. But what we can do is we can make sure that people have access to trade schools. We make sure that people have access to education in order to fill the jobs that we're not able to fill today. We worked while I was mayor significantly to create apprenticeship programs. We worked to make sure that we are funding education. And so we have to do that as a state to continue because right now students have overwhelming burdens on their loans from student loans. And what that does is it eliminates their ability to purchase a house first. It eliminates their ability to grab credit and things like that, which doesn't make them set up for good, positive futures.
Representative Mortensen, what changes are needed in state support for post-secondary education?
Sure. You know, as I'm knocking doors, I don't hear anybody asking about this stuff. What I do hear people talking about is the concern of the college debt, right? The expense related to going to college, a four-year school, and the pressure that kids feel to go into a four-year school out of high school. So I'm a big believer in the trades. I mean, if you call and try to get work done to your property, you'll be waiting a long time. So I'm a big believer in the trades myself, and I'd like to see more emphasis around that in schools and much less so on pushing kids into a four-year college to get a degree in women's studies or some liberal degree that means nothing in the real world, that has no value in the business community.
Mr. Tabke, I see you'd like to make a rebuttal.
Yes, thank you. This is another example of Representative Mortensen's just absolute complete inflexibility and inability to work together and compromise on issues that are really important in the state of Minnesota and in Shakopee. So you've got this where he voted no on every single bill that had any sort of funding. You fund the trades, you fund kids going to school in the trades by funding them and having school accessible for students growing through that system. And so he's the only legislator out of 201 legislators to vote against a veterans bill that would have helped to curb veteran suicide, end veterans homelessness, things like that. His inflexibility and inability to compromise is detrimental to our community.
Representative Mortensen, what is the most significant transportation issue facing our community, and how should that be addressed at the state level?
Sure. Well, first I have to address this because, of course, Tabke's pushing his talking point that I'm inflexible and can't compromise. But, you know, the reality here is, and I know this is a foreign concept to you, I do what I said I would do. That's very important to me. And 2 years ago, I said I will not vote for a single tax increase. I will not vote for a single nickel in government growth. I will not vote to spend your surplus money. That is not, it's not the legislator's money. That's your surplus money. So, yeah, I did vote against every single nickel in government growth. I voted against every single tax increase because that's what I told you I would do. And again, I know that's a foreign concept to Brad here, but that's very important to me.
Mr. Tabke, what is the most significant transportation issue facing our community, and how should that be addressed at the state level?
Representative Mortensen didn't answer this question because he said at the last time we were together in this debate that the first thing he would do when he was elected in the state of Minnesota was to put a bill to improve the bridge across 169. That's the biggest thing that we have in the state of Minnesota, in Shakopee, that's affecting transportation. He claims that he said he does everything that he says he's going to do, and he simply didn't do that. He went in and he tried to force votes, and he made a fool out of himself, and everybody was laughing at him in the legislature, which is it's not good for our community. It's not good for Shakopee because it doesn't set us up in order to get things done. And so with that, I passed a bill that would have, it's significantly expensive to expand the 169 bridge, as I've been saying all along. We passed a bill that would have funded arterial bus rapid transit from Shakopee to Highway 55 down into Minneapolis, and that's how we get at the problem, is by giving people options and giving people ways that they are able to commute within Shakopee and get things done that way.
Mr. Tabke, do you support the legalization of recreational use of marijuana, and why or why not?
Yes, I absolutely support legalization of marijuana. It is really important as you look at equity differences in the state of Minnesota. People of color get arrested and thrown in prison significantly higher rates than white people do in Minnesota on marijuana charges. And so we have a lot of folks who are sitting in prisons today, not contributing to the world, not contributing to our state, spending lots of money in that way, when white folks are not sent to prison for the exact same crimes. And so it has been proven over and over that it is not a gateway drug. It is not a way into doing drugs. It is a way that we can handle PTSD. It is a way we can handle those types of issues in our state. And so we should absolutely legalize marijuana. There's a third-party candidate in this race who is there simply to take votes away from us. So I need to make sure that every single person who is interested in legalizing marijuana votes in my direction to get this done.
Representative Mortensen, do you support the legalization of recreational marijuana, and why or why not?
Sure. Well, I got to correct you, Brad, because 4 years ago I said I'd do that. But like I said, 2 years ago, the one thing we agreed on was with COVID and everybody working from home, we said, well, 169 bridge, we'll have to wait and see. So you're putting words in my mouth. I don't appreciate it. Yeah, I support legalizing marijuana. In fact, I prefer decriminalizing it. I don't trust bureaucrats or politicians to come up with the perfect balance to create some marketplace when it comes to legalizing marijuana. And I actually did vote for legalizing marijuana. So I guess if Brad's going to beg for votes up here, I'll do the same. So I actually voted to legalize marijuana, if that's your issue.
Representative Mortensen, do you support the legalization of sports betting, and why or why not?
To me, it's the same question as the last one, quite honestly. We had a sports betting bill this last session. I voted for it in committee. When the bill came to the floor, I looked at it and said, well, this is like the epitome of crony capitalism. It was going to enrich the special interest groups that would benefit in a huge, huge way. And the opportunity was not very broad for anybody just to get into that marketplace that was going to get created. So I looked at it as a very much a crony capitalistic bill. So ultimately, I voted against it. Quite frankly, just like when it comes to legalizing marijuana, I prefer just decriminalizing sports betting and just permit these things to happen, because they're already happening. March Madness is going to come up, the Masters. People already bet on sports. I don't think we need politicians' hands involved in that.
Mr. Tabke, do you support the legalization of sports betting, and why or why not?
Yes, I definitely support the legalization of sports betting in the state of Minnesota. I think it's something that we can do and that we should do for our communities. People, as Representative Mortensen said, people want it. People want to see that happening. And so with that as well, in order to get this done, it takes getting stakeholders together. It takes, in Shakopee specifically, we have multiple stakeholders that are very, very invested in sports betting. So we've got Canterbury Park, we've got the SMSC and the tribal communities that have a stake in this. And Representative Mortensen fails to talk to anybody in our community. He doesn't talk to these stakeholders. He doesn't talk to the school district about what we need for education. He doesn't talk to the city about what we need for our community. He doesn't talk to the county about what we need for public services. He just doesn't do the work. He also doesn't show up for committee meetings. He missed a significant number of committee meetings, unexcused and excused, and that's just not doing the work for Shakopee residents.
Our time is running out. Anyone whose questions have not been answered should ask the candidates this evening or visit their campaign offices. You can find more information about the candidates at the Chamber's website, shakopee.org. Each candidate will now have 1 minute for their closing statement, and we will begin with Representative Erik Mortensen.
Great. Well, first of all, I want to thank the Chamber for putting this together. It's truly been an honor to serve the Shakopee community the last couple of years. I think that there's no disputing the fact that I have constantly put the people across our community well above partisan politics at the Capitol, and certainly above trying to become friends with politicians, because That is a very, very dangerous road to go down because, like I said before, it neuters the legislator because they legitimately put their friendships with politicians above you. That is what happens at the Capitol. Like I promised everybody 2 years ago, I would be a leader at the Capitol. I would be independent voice down there, and I would always put people over politicians by pulling back the curtain at the Capitol and give everybody the levels of transparency, the likes of which you have never seen before. And you know what? That certainly makes the politicians at the Capitol not like me so much, but that's okay. I don't fight for them. I'm fighting for you. So the beauty of this race is we both have voting records. And Tabke is one of jacking up taxes, increasing spending, consuming your liberties, and locking down our state. And mine is the polar opposite, so I ask for your support.
Mr. Tabke.
Thank you very much. And again, thanks as well to the Chamber for hosting this, and for River Valley Church, and for Representative Mortensen for showing up. It is really great to be here with everyone. It is great to have folks working together to get the job done for our community again here in Shakopee. And so thank you very much, everybody, for watching this at home and for being here. You've seen two very different visions and set of values for our community and for our state moving forward. And we want to work together. I would like to have your vote working together to get things done for Minnesota. We need to focus on making sure that we are upholding and saving reproductive rights in the state of Minnesota. We need to make sure that we are fully funding education, for world-class education for our kids and for our students. He is for increasing class sizes and gutting our public school system. That's not where we're at as a community. And so I just ask for your vote this coming November 8th. My website is tabkeformn.com, TABKEFORMN.com, and you can go there to learn more about voting and learn more about what we believe in. So thank you very much.
As we close this part of our discussion tonight, please remember that the views expressed in the debate are those of the candidates and not the views of the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber sponsors this event as a service to the community and has gone to extraordinary lengths to ensure the objectivity of this forum. The Chamber does not endorse any candidate. Instead, we seek to provide the information that you need to make informed choices when you vote. Thank you to the audience this evening and to River Valley Church for hosting our event. On behalf of the Shakopee Chamber and Visitors Bureau, thank you to all of the candidates. Thank you for participating tonight. We appreciate your time and your service to our community. Election Day is Tuesday, November 8th. Please remember to vote